All of our dogs have had Shakespearean names. We've had Mad Queen Margaret, Percy, because he was kind of a Hotspur sort of guy. Alice was our first dog, and Rosaline and Ganymede.
Kitty?
You go.
Well, the work that I do, I've been teaching Shakespeare for about 25 years. I started at a theater company called Theater 40.
Oh,
and
more than that. We've been here for 34 years. You've
Okay.
been in LA?
I don't think I started teaching immediately, Kitty.
32, whatever.
And it's been a passion of mine for that long. And I get great enjoyment out of it. I love being able to open up the ideas, the formats, the techniques that Shakespeare employed, and getting young actors, older actors, to discover them along with me.
You're also quite a good Shakespearean actor, and you've done a lot of productions.
I have, but I get more pleasure out of teaching than out of acting.
He does. It's true. I do not teach Shakespeare, but I do listen to him teach Shakespeare a lot, and it's quite helpful. I'm an actor, and we're both associate artistic directors of the Antaeus company, so we spend a lot of time there. And we host Shakespeare nights in our house where smart people sit around and talk about a play for weeks on end. It's pretty great. I sort of love that.
We had been married for just under a year, and we both had been hired by our acting teacher to go to the Barter Theater in West Virginia.
Virginia. Just Virginia?
Virginia, wasn't West Virginia, right?
The west part of
It is.
Virginia.
The Barter is the oldest regional theater in the country. It's called the Barter Theater because originally you didn't have to pay money to get tickets. You just give foodstuffs, and you could barter stuff to get in for the performances. And we did Love's Labor's Lost, and we had a wonderful time. We worked with a lot of people that we knew. Almost the entire cast were from our acting class, and our acting teacher had chosen out of her class who she was going to take with her to Virginia. And it was a wonderfully romantic summer. Not only were we doing Shakespeare, we were also playing volleyball, gazing at the stars. There was one particular scene, I was playing Costard in Love's Labor's Lost, and our director, Ada Brown Mather, said to me, "Armin, do you know what this line means?" And I said, "Yes, Ada, I do." She said, "Can you make sure the audience understands it when you say it?" And I said, "Yes, Ada." And it was a rather raunchy line. And when I said it, half the audience would leave. They were offended by...
But a lot. I mean, people would leave in droves. It was a trip.
They found it offensive. But, you know, the great thing about Shakespeare, it's not pre-puritanical, but happening just as the Puritans are coming into power. And it's very scatological.
So much of the way we think, people that are in the Western culture, whether they know it or not, is influenced by Shakespeare. So many of the things we say, so many of the pathways our minds take were developed by Shakespeare. He was the first modern playwright. He was so much a part of my existence as a childhood that I go back to him as a touchstone over and over again. So even though I think everybody's influenced by him, the people who study him on a regular basis are influenced more. I find him to be an incredibly forgiving playwright. He allows you to think for yourself, but makes you think about new things at the same time. And that changes how I view all of my work, not just how I do Shakespeare. As Armin said, I apply the same things I learned from studying Shakespeare to any rhetorical playwright, but also to the way I think about life.
Because my life has been wrapped around Shakespeare ever since college. My first professional gig was at Shakespeare's Festival in San Diego. And so Shakespeare means more to me than just the plays, more than just the words. It also means my inroad to my career. Shakespeare allowed me to get a foot in the professional theater world. It allowed me to do the same when I went to New York and worked on Broadway. I would do a classical audition, which I believe I will show you later. And that got directors, casting directors, producers interested in me because of my facility with the language, my facility with that audition speech. My greatest success stories probably being on Star Trek. Most of the major Star Trek actors all have a classical background. And so again, my classical background, my understanding of Shakespeare, was influential in my getting the TV show. And all the, as Kitty said, all the techniques that I've learned from working on Shakespeare and learning how he wrote are intrinsic in me, and so they naturally come out when I'm either working on him or any playwright. But it's also a matter of my career. Shakespeare has always been part of my career. I've worked in a great many Shakespeare festivals and a great many other places where Shakespeare was sort of in the background. So there's that as well.
When we were first dating, one of the first things he did was do his Richard III for me and scared the living daylights out of me.
It's intense.
I don't think he would have liked me if he thought I wasn't talented, truth be told.
It's, I would have liked you anyway, but it's icing on the cake that you are talented. Well, since I teach this, that's an easy answer for me. For an actor to be great at Shakespeare, in my opinion, he needs to do, or she needs to do, three things. One, he has to know, or she has to know, the meaning of every single word that they say. And sometimes meanings can be elusive because we're fooled into thinking that the word has a modern meaning as opposed to a Elizabethan meaning. And if you don't know the difference between the two meanings, you can get lost, and if the actor gets lost, then the audience gets lost. Then, having looked up the definitions of all the words and knowing exactly what you're saying, you have to understand what the connotation of those lines are. So, okay, you know what the words mean, but what is the connotation? Why are you saying that? And why are you couching it in this way in order to say it? And the third thing you have to know is, why do you say it in the way that you say it? For instance, if you're describing a four-legged creature that you ride to battle on, an aristocrat might say equine, a middle-class person might say horse, and a lower-class person might say nag. So you have to understand, why am I using those terms differently than somebody else would? And that will help you discover parts and parcels of your character as well. You also, if you have the time for it, it is essential to understand the world that the plays were written in. You have to understand the difference in culture between that time and ours. That doesn't mean that you can't put The Tempest in space, but you have to understand where it's coming from originally so that you can make the Gestalt jump to something else. If you don't understand what the foundation is, there's nothing to build upon.
What he said. In our house, he's the... I don't think that Shakespeare is my perfect match as a playwright. I've done a lot of it. I'm pretty good at it, but Shaw, Coward, that's my sweet spot. So I defer to him.
But Shaw and Coward also
have all those
write rhetorically,
yeah.
and the rules of rhetoric apply to them as well.
Yes.
Because that's what they were taught when they were in school, and that flows out of them in their plays.
Absolutely. Aside from the fact that it was the first time I was paid to do Shakespeare, Love's Lover's Lost with him, they're smart-asses, Barun and Rosaline, and I'm a smart-ass, and I like her. Oft have I heard of you, my Lord Barun, before I saw you, And the world's large tongue proclaims you for a man replete with mocks, full of comparisons and wounding flats, which you on all estates will execute, that lie within the mercy of your wit. To weed this wormwood from your fruitful brain, and therewithal to win me, if you please, without the which I am not to be won, you shall, this 12-month term, from day to day, visit the speechless sick and enforce the painted impotent to smile. To move wild laughter in the throat of death, aye, that's the way to choke a gibing spirit whose influence is begot of that loose grace which shallow laughing hearers give to fools. A jest's prosperity lies in the ears of him that hears it, never in the tongue of him that makes it.
I chose it because when I found it, which was back in college really, a long time ago, it speaks to my own insecurity and my own anger. And it's just therapeutic, actually, when I get to do it, because it lets that all out. Well, say there is no kingdom, then, for Richard. What other pleasures can the world afford? I'll make my heaven in a lady's lap, and deck my body in gay ornaments, and witch sweet ladies with my words and looks. Why? Love forswore me in my mother's womb. She did corrupt frail nature with some bribe, to shrink mine arm up like a withered shrub, to make an envious mountain on my back with its deformity, to mock my body, to shape my legs of an unequal size, to disproportion me in every part like to a chaos. And am I then a man to be beloved? Ah! Then, since this earth affords no joy to me, I'll make my heaven to dream upon the crown. And yet I know not how to get the crown, for many lives stand between me and home. Why, I can smile and murder whilst I smile, and cry content to that which grieves my heart. I can add colors to the chameleon, change shapes with Proteus for advantages, and set the murderous Machiavel to school. Can I do this, and cannot get a crown? Tut, were it further off, I will pluck it down.